Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Today I'm going to discuss on equitable assignment. Last week or in the last session we have covered on legal assignment. The difference between legal and equitable assignment protects the assignee when the transaction is not registered, or for instance when there is no express notice being given to the debtor or the assignee. So here the debtor or the assignee in particular still can have a right to claim or recover the debt against the debtor. The nature of the transaction is the same like a legal assignment. It just is not a registered transaction under the Civil Law Act 1956, Section 4, Subsection 3. In proving a case of equitable assignment, these are the things that the plaintiff must establish. Number one, the plaintiff must prove that there is an intention to assign. Here, we are talking about the assignee claiming his right for the assigned right by the assignor. So assignee here is claiming against the debtor. The assignee as the plaintiff must prove that the assignor has the intention to assign the contractual obligation to the debtor. Number two, the assignee must also prove that the subject matter is identifiable. Number three, it must be a valuable consideration. Number four, notice is important but not mandatory. If you have notice, then you have a better right of action in the case of equitable assignment. For the first element, that the plaintiff must prove that there must be an intention to assign. So when proving the intention here, there is no need to prove a particular form of intention, meaning that it does not need to be in writing. Intention, as Stephen and Buzz say, it can be derived and drawn from the conducts or words of the parties. The most important thing is that when you look at the conducts or words of the parties, you can recognize that there is an intention to transfer the benefit, the right, or interest in the contract from the assignor to the assignee. You still remember about the maxim that we learned last time? That equity look to the intent rather than form. So this is how we apply the maxim here, where there is no need to have a formal intention. When I say a formal intention, that the intention needs to be written. That is not necessary or not mandatory requirement for equitable assignment. So when we talk about intention to assign, intention here must come from the assignee from the assignor to the assignee. It can happen voluntarily between the parties, meaning that the assignor, assignee, and the debtor voluntarily agree to the assignment. It can be also an instruction given by the assignor to the assignee, or instruction given by the assignor to the debtor. Besides that, it can also be in the form of assignor informing the debtor or assignee. Intention to assign also can be for value, meaning that this is something for the choose in action in future, meaning that it does not happen now. For instance, if you're talking about the law of trust, after the death of the settlor or the testator, then only the property will be assigned by the assignor to the assignee. So it depends upon on the occurrence of a particular event. The case of Malayawata Steel and Government of Malaysia give us some ideas about the meaning of intention. So if you have the plain meaning of the words, that is much easier. to get the intention, to grasp, to draw the intention of the parties, especially intention to assign here. So the intention here must be addressed to the debtor or the assignee. In the case of Malaysian International Merchant Bank and Malaysian Airline System, in this case, the court say that in whatever form equitable assignment took place, whether it is voluntary, for value, complete, or absolute without notice, there is an intention to assign. In some cases that you will see later, some assignment is absolute, but there was late notice or there was no formal notice being given. But then the court recognized that even though there was no notice being given, but by the conduct of the parties, if you look at the conduct of the parties, then you will see that the parties has agreed to assign. Right. This is particularly that I mentioned just now, by conduct is particularly happening in the case of Malaysian International Merchant Banker. The next element that the plaintiff must prove that the subject matter must be identifiable. So we are talking here, in the case of assignment, it must be chose in action. Remember, when we talk about the meaning of chose in action last time, it is about transfer of right, transfer of debt, transfer of interest in the contractual obligation. So chose in action is different from chose in possession. Chose in possession is by taking physical possession of the property. But for chose in action is the way you enforce your right is by transferring the debt, for instance, from the assignor to the debt by assigning assignee to get the debt from the debtor. In the case of Malayawata, the subject matter here, we're talking about the progress payment. I will describe the case in detail later. In the case of Malaysian International Merchant Banker, the subject matter there is money in the current account. Assignment, as I told you just now, can be also for value, with something in future. In common law, this is void because common law only entertain things that is present, but in equity it is possible as long as the assignor receive good consideration for something he expects in the future. For instance, the expectation of inheriting an estate of living testator, future damages expected to be recovered in ongoing lawsuit. So in this regard, you will see that upon the occurrence of certain event, the assignment could take place. This is for something in future, for future interests. The third element, the subject matter, the contract must involve valuable consideration. So for this, to determine whether something is valuable consideration or not, we refer to section 24 of the Contract Act 1950, where the contract or the consideration, the object of the agreement must be lawful, must not be against public policy, must be legal. Notice, remember when we did on legal assignment last week, we refer to section 4 subsection 3. Under section 4 subsection 3, express notice is compulsory. So in the case of equitable assignment, even though without notice being given by the assignor to the debtor, it is still a valid equitable assignment. So here, that means notice to debtor is not mandatory. But if there is a notice, then you will have a better right. Without notice, the assignee can only get a right in personam, meaning that you can only enforce your right by court order. But with notice, you have both in rem and in personam's right. In rem means you are taking physical possession of, you are taking you can take action against the property of the debtor. For instance, if the debtor failed to pay the debt. Okay, let's look at the some case laws, the selected case law, I would say here. There are many cases on equitable assignment. Okay, the first case that I would like to discuss is the case of Malaysian International Merchant Bankers and Malaysian Airline System Berhad. In this case, there was a contract between Malaysian Airlines and Bahagia Trading to supply of punch cards and computer cards. The value of the contract is 64,542,000. In this case, the Bahagia Trading BT has agreed to assign the debt payable to MIMB, Malaysian International Merchant Bankers, as a consideration and collateral security for a loan. So the loan here is 414,000. So for that, since they have agreed to assign, so they they enter into what we call as a deed of assignment, DOA, not assignment of deed. There was a typo there. So the deed of assignment was executed by Mars in 1975, but the deed was only executed by Bahagia Trading in 1976. So here there was a assignment contract between the assigner. Remember, we discussed about the diagram just now. So BT is B, and then you have the assignee, which is MIMB. But as the assigner, the BT, Bahagia Trading, only executed the contract, the assignment contract in 1976, about 8.5 months later. So basically, there was already an assignment in 1975, although it was only executed or it was only signed. The deed was only signed in 1976. The issue here is whether the late signing affects the validity of the equitable assignment. In other words, whether the assignment is absolute. When you say assignment is absolute, is there was a full or whole payment of debt. But here, the assignment, as we observed just now, already took place, but it was executed like later, like 8 months later. So the court looked into the intention of the parties to assign and held that there were words clearly indicated an intention to assign, and as MIMB also has received the benefit or had received the benefit of the chosen action. So here the assignment already took place when it was addressed to either to Malaysian Airlines as the debtor or the assignee, either one party. It does not need to be both parties. Okay. So here it only happens between MIMB and BT lah. So the assignment here between the assigner and assignee is already complete. Complete notice here is given to the debtor, either voluntarily or for value. In this case, the assignment was absolute because when Bahagia Trading accepted the terms of payment from IMB, it's already happening. The assignment is already absolute. So it is not important whether the BT Bahagia Trading signed the deed later in 1976. The signing of the deed was just a formality because the assignment is already there. In fact, in 1975, the money has been disbursed by MIMB to BT. So if it was not an assignment in the first place, then MIMB would not have been given the loan if BT refused to sign the contract, isn't it? So by conduct of the parties, you can understand that there is an intention to assign. The court held in this case, MIMB was aware that it became trustee for the money due under mass contract with BP. Therefore, Malaysia Airlines is liable to pay the remaining amount, although it has been paid already to Bahagia. There are some balance there. So there is an assignment in this case, absolute assignment, even though the signing was done later, like almost a year after the intention to assign was agreed by the assigner and the assignee. Let's move on to the next case, Malaya Water Steel Berhad and Government of Malaysia. In this case, the government, who was also the respondent, particularly the government here, the government entity here is the Public Work Department, was the respondent, arranged the construction of a broadcasting center. So the contract was awarded to a contractor, King Hoi NKH in this case. NKH in this case signed another contract with Malaya Water Steel Berhad, who was also the assignee in this case. So if you can remember, here we have, this is basically the diagram, okay? Right. The payment method here is when the payment method is happening by way of assignment when NKH authorized the government of Malaysia to deduce the amount of progress payment due and payable to or for private works department to make direct payments to MSB. What does that mean? Meaning that NKH authorized the government to pay direct to the assignee instead of paying to NKH. The debtor needs to pay to the assignee. So there was an assignment already, right? Right, the issue in this case was whether MSB, Malaya Water Steel Berhad, can claim the outstanding amount of steel bar supply from the respondent, from the Public Works Department, Government of Malaysia. The court held that there was a valid equitable assignment of the progress payment insofar as the payment of the relevant steel supply was due and outstanding, because there was still an outstanding payment, right? And there was already an arrangement for the respondent to pay directly to MSB. So there is no need to say that they did not receive the notice, because there was already an intention to assign. The next case is the case of CIMB Bank Berhad and Sabang Gemilang Sendirian Berhad. In this case, the second respondent was the appellant's customer. So the appellant financed 3 government projects awarded to R2, second respondent. As an additional security, a sinking fund was created where 5% of the proceeds of the government's contract were deposited into the account. The account was created solely by the appellant. R2, however, could not complete the project, so R2 executed a deed of assignment and power of attorney in favor of the first respondent. So now, by way of assignment, because of the assignment, R2 passed a board resolution to make the director of R1, the first respondent, to be another authorized signatory to its current account with the appellant. R1 respondent, the first respondent completed the project. The second respondent requested the appellant to close the sinking fund and credited the fixed deposit to the second respondent's current account upon repayment of the loan. And then after that, second respondent passed another resolution to remove the second respondent as the authorized signatory because the project has been completed. After the expiry of defects liability period, normally about 2-3 years, but now has been extended to 15 years for the defects liability period. Yeah. The second respondent has approached the bank, CIMB Bank, the appellant, to release money accumulated in the sinking fund. Later, the first respondent discovered that the account had been closed and the monies had been paid out to Muhammad Hamidi, who was the first signatory of the account and owner of the second respondent. So just now, the first respondent was the second signatory by the name of Amiruddin. That was the name of the director of the first respondent. Amiruddin's Amiruddin's name as a signatory was removed by the first respondent in the second resolution. So after that, but that was not told to the first respondent. Only after that, after the expiry of the defects of liability period, the first respondent discovered that the account had been closed and the money had been paid out to Muhammad Hamidi instead to Amiruddin lah. Because the bank could not pay to Amiruddin anymore because Amiruddin's name as a signatory had been removed based on the company's resolution. Company resolution means company decision lah. They have, when we say pass a resolution, decision has been made at AGM or EGM of the company, annual or extraordinary general meeting. So there were two issues basically in this case. The first issue is whether there is no written notice of an absolute assignment, could the debtor be still held liable to the assignee for the debt under the assignment. In this case, there was a failure to give express noting or express notice, to give notice in writing according to section 4 subsection 3. Of course, if you would like to bring your case under a legal assignment, that would not be successful. But that would not prevent the assignee to take the case as an equitable assignee. And in this case, since the second respondent has been made party, so it is possible to recover the debt under the assignment. So no notice is okay if you bring the action under equitable assignment. The second issue is whether the debtor could be held liable to the third party, which is the first respondent in this case, for the debt, when the debtor has the knowledge of the assignment between its customer and third-party debtor. Its customer just now is the second respondent lah, and the third-party debtor is the first respondent. Just now, the payment has been made to Muhammad Hamdi instead of Amiruddin because the bank could not make the payment. Amiruddin's name has been removed. However, the court looked at the events in the case. Based on the events here, there was a change of signatory, as we discussed just now, in 2004, based on deed of assignment. The second respondent had instructed the appellant by a letter dated 20th May 2004 to add Amiruddin as a second signatory. So A's office memorandum dated 25 June 2003, and then 15 August 2003 and 19 August 2003 respectively were addressed to Amiruddin. So here, based on these events, you can say that the bank or the appellant has knowledge about has knowledge of an assignment between the first respondent and the second respondent. So the court held in this case that the appellant had knowledge of the assignment. That's all for equitable assignment. Please also take a look at these two cases for further reading. Thank you so much and have a good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.